Hello, friends, and welcome to Jewels of Truth. My name is Daniel Fontenot. Today we will continue in a series of studies on the book of Daniel, chapter 11 in particular. And this presentation is entitled, What Does Bible Prophecy Say About Donald Trump, who will be the 47th President of the United States? Now, before I continue, I want to encourage you, if you haven't already watched, a couple of presentations that I did some months ago. One was entitled, Will Donald Trump Be the New Constantine? And the other one was entitled, Biden and Trump and the Repetition of History. Okay? I encourage you to watch those. Actually, those should have been watched before this one, but if you're going to watch this one, then you should watch the other two also, because it gives more of a foundation as why months ago, I said that Donald Trump would win the election. He would be the next president of the United States, and he will be the new Constantine. Okay, he will repeat history. Donald Trump is represented by several people, and one of them is Constantine. But also in this context, we will see that he is represented by Xerxes, the king of Persia. But he's represented by others also, but we haven't got that far yet. So, let's go ahead and begin. And please, I would encourage you to stick with me here. Some of this can get kind of complicated. So just try to follow my logic here, okay? So let's begin by reading Daniel chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others beside those. Okay, so let's begin by also reading a couple of statements that I have put on the record before, one of them especially in connection with this subject of Daniel chapter 11. Testimonies to Ministers, page 116, tells us, we are standing on the threshold of great and solemn events. Many of the prophecies are about to be fulfilled in quick succession. Every element of power is about to be set to work. Past history will be repeated. Old controversies will arouse to new life, and peril will beset God's people on every side. Intensity is taking hold of the human family. It is permeating everything upon the earth. Study Revelation in connection with Daniel, for history will be repeated. We, with all our religious advantages, ought to know far more than we do know. And that is especially true concerning Seventh-day Adventists. With all the religious advantages that Seventh-day Adventists have had, we should know far more than we do know today. But we have backslid towards the world. And here's another one, Manuscript Releases, Volume 13, page 394. This is the one especially that I have repeated several times in this series of studies on Daniel chapter 11. We have no time to lose. Troublous times are before us. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. Soon the scenes of trouble spoken of in the prophecies will take place. The prophecy in the 11th of Daniel has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Much of the history that has taken place in fulfillment of this prophecy will be repeated. So she is as clear as the noonday sun that Daniel chapter 11 will be repeated. And this, again, this is from Manuscript Releases, Volume 13, page 394. So when the Spirit of Prophecy tells us that much of the history that has taken place in fulfillment of this prophecy, the 11th of Daniel, will be repeated, it is also telling us that much of Daniel 11 has already been fulfilled in the past. So how was Daniel 11, 1 through 4 fulfilled in the past? So we're talking here now, if you haven't already watched the previous video, which was entitled, "The Sunday Law is Enforced in the Fourth Generation," okay, you need to watch that one first. Otherwise, you may have a difficult time in following my logic in this study. So the fourth king, okay, the fourth king is the primary object of, the primary, I guess you would say, object or person in this study, because, you know, I'm calling this study, "What Does Bible Prophecy Say About Donald Trump?" Okay? So, and again, here is another statement that I have already placed on the record in previous presentations in this series, from Uriah Smith's book, Daniel and the Revelation, pages 248 and 249. He says, "We now enter upon a prophecy of future events, clothed not in figures and symbols as in the visions of chapters 2, 7, and 8, but given mostly in plain language. Many of the signal events of the world's history, from the days of Daniel to the end of the world, are here brought to view. This prophecy," says Bishop Newton, "may not improperly be said to be a comment and explanation of the vision of chapter 8, a statement showing how clearly he perceived the connection between that vision and the remainder of the book." So one of the things he's saying, you know, he's connecting Daniel chapter 8 with Daniel chapter 11. So Daniel chapter 2, 7, and 8 are definitely connected with Daniel chapter 11. Especially in the book of Daniel is this so, where you have, and you may already be familiar with this principle, where these histories, these prophecies are repeated and enlarged as you go through the book. The angel, after stating that he stood in the first year of Darius to confirm and strengthen him, turns his attention to the future. 3 kings shall stand up in Persia. To stand up means to reign. 3 kings were to reign in Persia, referring doubtless to the immediate successors of Cyrus. These were, number 1, Cambyses, son of Cyrus; number 2, Smerdis, an impostor; and 3, Darius Hystaspes. The 4th shall be richer than they all. The 4th king from Cyrus was Xerxes, more famous for his riches than his generalship, and conspicuous in history for the magnificent campaign he organized against Grecia and his utter failure in that enterprise. He was to stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And also, before I continue this paragraph, also realize that this Xerxes is the same person as King Ahasuerus there in the book of Esther. Okay, though the book of Esther and the book of Daniel are closely connected, especially because of Xerxes, the king of Persia, who was, I say again, Ahasuerus. Never before had there been such a levy of men for warlike purposes. Now, notice here that this king Artaxerxes, he had a magnificent campaign that he organized against Grecia. He was successful, as we'll see in another passage, and he also failed. Let's continue. He was to stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Never before had there been such a levy of men for warlike purposes. Never has there been since. His army, according to Herodotus, who lived in that age, consisted of 5,283,220 men. And not content with stirring up the east alone, he enlisted the Carthaginians of the west in his service, who took the field with an additional army of 300,000 men, raising his entire force to the almost fabulous number of over 5.5 million. As Xerxes looked over that vast concourse, he is said to have wept at the thought that in 100 years from that time, not one of all those men would be left alive. And that's from Uriah Smith's book, Daniel and the Revelation, 248-249. Again, the Scriptures say, "Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia." That is, after Cyrus. So after Cyrus, you have 3 kings in Persia. And I hope that if you haven't already seen or watched the series on the Daniel chapter 6, I make the point that Persia symbolizes or represents the United States of America at the end of the world. You should watch that series if you haven't. So, again, you have 3 kings after Cyrus. So, number 1, Cambyses, son of Cyrus. Number 2, Smerdis, an impostor. Number 3, Darius, Hystaspes. The word yet, among other words, in the original Hebrew means still more, or besides, henceforth, or yet. So the scriptures are telling us that besides the kings of Cyrus and Darius, you will have 3 more kings. All right? So note, when the angel Gabriel tells Daniel that there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, he is saying that still more kings shall stand up in Persia. He is saying, besides Darius and Cyrus, 3 kings shall stand up or rule in Persia. And the 4th shall be richer than they all. And Xerxes shall be far richer than they all. Okay? It's the same thing. So the following passage is from another edition of the same book quoted above, that book being Uriah Smith's Daniel and Revelation. He says, "The 4th after Cyrus was Xerxes, son of Darius Hystaspes. He was famous for his wealth, a direct fulfillment of the prophecy stating that he should be far richer than they all. He was determined to conquer the Greeks. Therefore, he set about organizing a mighty army which Herodotus says numbered 5,283,220 men. Xerxes was not content to stir up the east alone. He also enlisted the support of Carthage in the west. The Persian king fought, notice it says, the Persian king fought Greece successfully. This has a bearing now on the subject of this study, being what does Bible prophecy say about Donald Trump, okay? The Persian king fought Greece successfully at the famous Battle of Thermopylae, but the mighty army was able to overrun the country only when the 300 brave Spartans who held the pass were betrayed by traitors. Xerxes finally suffered defeat at the Battle of Samalis in the year 480 BC and the Persian army made its way back again to its own country. That's from Uriah Smith, Daniel and Revelation, pages 233, 234, revision copyrighted in 1944 and 1972. So the Spirit of Prophecy names, I want to remind us here of the fact that the Spirit of Prophecy names Uriah Smith's book, Thoughts on Daniel and the Revelation, God's Helping Hand. I'm started using his book as an authority. Okay? So note, the definition of Xerxes is ruler over heroes. Ruler, or rather a hero among kings. Let me repeat. Ruler over heroes, hero among kings. Okay? And the definition will be, this definition, it seems to be like this is insignificant in regards to the subject at hand. But we will see in the next presentation, not this one, but in the next one, we will see this to be significant as we examine Daniel 11 and verse 3 later. So 5 points to be noted about Xerxes. Number 1, he is the 4th king of Persia after Cyrus. Number 2, he is far richer than the 3 previous kings. Number 3, he stirs up all against the realm of Grecia. Number 4, he is victorious over the Greeks at the Battle of Thermopylae. Number 5, he is ultimately defeated by the Greeks in the Battle of Salamis. So, it has already been established in previous studies that the history of Daniel chapter 11, prophetically speaking, begins its repeated fulfillment in 1989, at the time of the end, when, with the aid of the United States military and economic strength, the king of the north, the papacy, brought down the king of the south, the Soviet Union, in fulfillment of Daniel 11 and verse 40. Now, the history of Daniel chapter 11 is repeated from 1989, at the time of the end, until the Sunday law crisis, after which Michael, Christ, stands up, that is, human probation closes, and Christ returns in the clouds of heaven. Okay? That's what Daniel 11 is all about. From 1989 all the way to the coming of Christ in the clouds of heaven. Now, Cyrus and Darius are symbols of the time of the end. It is evident from the Bible and history that both Darius and Cyrus worked together in bringing down Babylon from its throne upon the earth. Babylon, both literal and spiritual, was brought down at the time of the end. Literal Babylon was brought down in 538 BC, and spiritual Babylon was brought down in 1798. Daniel's vision begins in chapter 10 in the 3rd year of Cyrus. Daniel chapter 10 and verse 1 tells us, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. Who was Cyrus? The nephew and successor of Darius. Notice what Prophets and Kings, page 523 tells us. Sister White tells us, it was not long before reverses came. Babylon was besieged by Cyrus, nephew of Darius the Mede, and commanding general of the combined armies of the Medes and Persians. Now, let's see if I have it here real quick. Yeah, we're coming to it here pretty quick. But just, I'm going to go ahead and read it anyway, even though we'll have it here in just a moment. Just so you'll make the connection right away. Whenever it says, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel. And that, just to give you, to kind of, get us oriented here, who is Darius? Yes, he is the king of Persia, but let's connect it here with Daniel chapter 5 and verse 29 30 and 31. This is the story about Belshazzar and his feast. Okay, and you have this hand that appears on the wall writing Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin, okay, which told of his doom and the doom of his kingdom. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Okay? Now, Cyrus and Darius, they operated together in the capture of Babylon. Let's see, this is from E.J. Wagner in The Present Truth of October 18, 1894. It tells us when I'll just read the bolded part there. When Belshazzar, the last Babylonian king, was slain on the night after his impious feast, Darius the Median took the kingdom, Daniel 5:30 and 31. He was not long afterwards succeeded by Cyrus, king of Persia, who operated with Darius in the capture of Babylon. The Medo-Persian Empire embraced all the territory of the Babylonian kingdom and continued until it was overthrown by Alexander the Great. Next statement or question. Were there two men who operated with each other in bringing down a kingdom in 1989, the time of the end? Let's keep that question in mind as we continue. Daniel chapter 10 and verse 1 tells us, in the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. We already read that verse. Daniel 11 and verse 1 tells us, also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Note that chapters 10 and 11 of the book of Daniel are the same vision. Chapter 11 is the continuation of the same vision as chapter 10. Therefore, when Gabriel informs Daniel in the first verse of chapter 11 that also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him, he is signifying that both Darius and Cyrus are symbols of the time of the end. And also, Daniel wrote his 9th chapter in 538 BC, which was the same year that Cyrus brought down Babylon. Daniel 8 and verse 1, in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. Uriah Smith tells us in his book Daniel and the Revelation, page 46, that Cyrus besieged Babylon, which he took by stratagem in 538 BC. And with the death of Belshazzar, whom the Persians killed, the kingdom of Babylon ceased to exist. And then you have there Daniel 5 and verses 30 and 31. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Uriah Smith tells us in Daniel and Revelation, page 205, the vision recorded in the preceding chapter, chapter 8, was given in the third year of Belshazzar, BC 538. In the same year, which was also the first of Darius, the events narrated in this chapter, chapter 9, occurred. And in Daniel chapter 9, verses 1 and 2 tells us, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. Daniel 11, verse 1, also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Jeremiah 25:11 and 12, and this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And it shall come to pass, when 70 years are accomplished, that I will punish the king of Babylon. When was that year? We'll find out here in just a moment. And that nation, saith the Lord, for their iniquity and the land of the Chaldeans, and will make it perpetual desolations. Jeremiah 29 and verse 10 tells us, for thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good word toward you in causing you to return to this place. So, note, the 70 years of captivity for ancient Israel began in 606 B.C. and ended in 536 B.C. The 1260 years of captivity for the Christian church began in 538 A.D. and ended in 1798 A.D. at the time of the end. So Uriah Smith tells us in Daniel and the Revelation, page 205, commencing the 70 years B.C. 606, Daniel understood that they were now drawing to their termination, and God had even commenced the fulfillment by overthrowing the kingdom of Babylon. And then also here from E.J. Wagner, The Everlasting Covenant, page 478, he tells us, and let's just drop down here to the next paragraph, the second paragraph, exactly as in the first instance, so in the second, everything came to pass according to the word of God. The captivity began in B.C. 606, and 68 years later, in B.C. 538, the city of Babylon fell into the hands of the Medes and Persians. And in 2 years after Daniel's prayer, in the year B.C. 536, just 70 years after the beginning of Israel's captivity in the city of Babylon, Cyrus, the king of Persia, issued a proclamation which is thus recorded. Okay. And I'll let you read all the rest of that paragraph there. So in Daniel 11, verses 1 and 2, let's repeat this. Daniel 11, verses 1 and 2. Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Okay. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. So summary points for the time of the end in the days of ancient Israel. Number 1, Israel's captivity lasted 70 years, 606 B.C. until 536 B.C. Number 2, ancient Babylon's reign ended and it fell in 538 B.C., 2 years before Israel's captivity ended. Number 3, 538 B.C. and 536 B.C. together represent the time of the end. And number 4, Darius and his nephew Cyrus, the kings of Persia, together also represent the time of the end. It's very, very important that you understand that Daniel 11 begins at the time of the end. So were there 2 men operating together to bring down a kingdom in 1989 and who also symbolize the time of the end? Let's see. Now, the summary given above is a type or symbol of the time of the end in 1989. President Ronald Reagan and President George Bush operated together to bring down the Soviet Union. Ronald Reagan may have spearheaded this. I just got this from History.com just to show how the 2 men worked together. Ronald Reagan may have spearheaded the buildup that led to the demise of the Soviet Union, but George H.W. Bush quietly saw it through. So they're working together in this, okay? One started it, the other one finished it. And note, as Darius and Cyrus worked together to bring down Babylon at the time of the end in 538 BC, so Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush worked together to bring down the Soviet Union at the time of the end in 1989. So who are the three kings that follow Presidents Reagan and Bush after 1989? Again, Daniel 11, verse 2, And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up three kings in Persia, or three presidents in the United States, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Number one, this is the first one after Cyrus, Bill Clinton. The second one, George W. Bush. Not George H.W., okay? This is the son of George H.W. Bush. George W. Bush is the second one from Cyrus. Number three, Barack Obama. All right? So, but the fourth shall be far richer than they all, Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is far richer than all previous U.S. presidents. Look it up. It's not difficult. It says of that fourth king or president, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Who does Grecia symbolize prophetically? Here is a passage from the Desire of Ages, page 622. And there were certain Greeks among them that came up to worship at the feast. The same came therefore to Philip, which was of Bethsaida of Galilee, and desired him, saying, Sir, we would see Jesus. Philip cometh and telleth Andrew, and again Andrew and Philip tell Jesus. At this time Christ's work bore the appearance of cruel defeat. He had been victor in the controversy with the priests and Pharisees, but it was evident that he would never be received by them as the Messiah. The final separation had come. To his disciples, the case seemed hopeless, but Christ was approaching the consummation of his work. The great event which concerned not only the Jewish nation, but what? The whole world was about to take place. When Christ heard the eager request, we would see Jesus echoing the hungering cry of the world, his countenance lighted up, and he said, The hour is come that the Son of Man should be glorified. In the request of the Greeks, he saw an earnest of the results of his great sacrifice. So you can see already in this passage that the Greeks, or Greece, or Grecia, represent the world. But she gets plainer. These men came from the west to find the Savior at the close of his life, as the wise men had come from the east at the beginning. At the time of Christ's birth, the Jewish people were so engrossed with their ambitious plans that they knew not of his advent. The Magi from a heathen land came to the manger with their gifts to worship the Savior. Notice, so these Greeks, representing who? The nations, tribes, and peoples of the world came to see Jesus. So the people of all lands and all ages would be drawn by the Savior's cross. So shall many come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. I don't need to read the rest of this passage here, but I think it's plain that when you look at Daniel chapter 11 and verse 2 and 3 in particular, Grecia there represents the world, but not only the world. The Greeks or Grecia or the Greeks not only represent the world as such, but they also represent the United Nations. This has much bearing upon Daniel 11 verses 3 and 4. And, you know, you may stumble at this, but the statement that we read from the Desire of Ages tells us plainly that the Greeks represented the nations of the world, nations, tribes, people of the world, okay? Well, it's called the United Nations, okay? So it should be not much of a stretch of the imagination, the reasoning to understand that Grecia represents in Daniel chapter 11 verses 2 and 3 the United Nations especially. All right? So now notice here, we're getting close to the end of this study. On September 24th, 2019, President Donald Trump gave a speech before the United Nations Assembly, in which he is quoted as saying, quote, "The future does not belong to the globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique." So, Donald Trump perfectly fulfills the prophecy of Daniel 11, verse 2, which states, quote, "Again, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia." This is exactly what Donald Trump has done. He has stirred up the world against the globalists. Okay? When I first began to produce this document, this study, I almost named it Donald Trump's War Against the Globalists, which would have been a fitting title, but I changed it. What does the Bible say about Donald Trump? I'm going to read a passage here from A.T. Jones' General Conference Bulletin, March 2nd, 1899. This is what he says. "Whether Seventh-day Adventists, other Christians, or men who care nothing for Christianity, who have studied history at all, everybody knows that the battles of Marathon and Thermopylae and Samalis and Plataea are the key of history. The turning point of history from the east toward the west was in those 4 great battles. Though Marathon occurred in the reign of Darius, Xerxes, though winning at Thermopylae, lost thousands of his army." A.T. Jones is telling us that the battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, and Samalis and Plataea are the key of history. They are the turning point of history from the east toward the west. And I'm emphasizing the Battle of Thermopylae the most because that is the one that Uriah Smith mentions earlier, as you remember in the statement that we read earlier. He is calling that, and Thermopylae was, Xerxes, he was successful. As an earlier statement tells us, he was successful. But he ultimately failed. He was defeated in the Battle of Plataea. Not Plataea, but Salamis. All right? So, in closing, Xerxes fought Greece successfully at the famous Battle of Thermopylae. So was Donald Trump successful in his battle against the globalists during his first term as President of the United States from 2017 until 2021. He was successful up to a certain point, is what I mean to say. Okay, because I know he was opposed a lot during his first term, and that's an understatement. Okay? But you can say he was successful in that he won the presidency, okay? And he was able to make some changes. But as Xerxes, the one who symbolizes Donald Trump, he finally suffered defeat by the Greeks at the Battle of Samalis in the year 480 BC, so Donald Trump suffered defeat by the globalists in his effort to be reelected to the presidency in November of 2020. So, there you have it. There you have it. What does the Bible say about Donald Trump? He is represented by Xerxes, the king of Persia, who fought against Greece. He stirred up all against the realm of Grecia. He was successful at the Battle of Thermopylae, but he was defeated in the Battle of Salamis. So, but the story is not over. As we know, by now, Donald Trump has been elected president for a second term. He will be the 47th president. In our next study, we will cover Daniel 11 and verse 3 in particular. Actually, Daniel 11 verses 3 and 4. We will cover that more extensively as we go into the next phase of this series. If you have any questions about this, I would encourage you to place your comments or questions at the bottom of this video. If you appreciate this type of content, if you agree, then tap that like button so that it can be sent far and wide to those who are hungering for Bible truth in these last days. And if you haven't subscribed, then I would highly encourage you to do that also. Thank you for joining us at Jewels of Truth. We hope and pray that you will have a good day in the Lord.